1. Trigger warning. Suicide threats, emotional abuse, racism. To set the scene, Sadbeard and I had grown up in the same friend group. We had always kind of known each other, but had never really hung out one-on-one. We usually only ever saw each other in group settings, get-togethers, parties, etc. We were pretty well acquainted throughout middle school and early high school, but had never really become friends until beginning of my junior year. During my junior year, I joined the competitive speech team at my high school. While theater experience prior had helped with my crippling stage fright, I was still terrified to speak in front of people solo. I felt that joining the speech team would help me overcome that fear. I joined as a novice, and was placed in the same event as Sadbeard. He had been competing in speech since freshman year, so he was well acquainted with the activity. Thrilled that I had someone to help me, he and I became fast friends. This friendship, however, would become strained, as I quickly jumped from competing with novices to seasoned speakers. Turns out my theater experience made me a charismatic speaker, and my success was often awarded with trophies and medals. I even made it to state, and became the first novice state champion in my high school's history. At the time, Sadbeard seemed thrilled about my success, or at least that's how he presented it. It wouldn't be until later that I found out he resented me for jumping to the top so quickly, while it had taken him 3 years to win his first trophy. Fast forward to senior year, I started PSEO at a local university, but still took several AP courses on campus at school. I had started working that previous summer and decided to keep my job throughout the school year. In addition to all these newfound responsibilities, both I and Sadbeard had been elected as speech team captains. I should also note that it was around this time Sadbeard and I started dating. During the first couple of months of school, he and I had grown close due to the fact that we were both PSEO students. We spent a lot of time together, and eventually I developed feelings and confessed by asking him to homecoming. He also confessed that he had feelings for me, and he wanted to ask me out, but I had beat him to it. As the school year began, we set about mentoring students, introducing them to the activity, and prepping them for the upcoming year. Everything seemed fine until he and I started mentoring students together. Anytime I had any suggestion, he would tell them, "Don't listen to her, she's not a real speaker. People just felt bad for her because she's Asian." My previous year's winning speech had been about my experiences as an Asian American, ranging from microaggressions to brazen racism. As the competitive year progressed, my success only grew. I found myself placing at every tournament. Sadbeard would also place, but usually not as often or as high. His bitterness would manifest as short jabs talking about the corniness of my speech, or how judges just liked me because I was Asian. I allowed these jabs because I felt bad. It was only my second year, and I surpassed him so quickly. And seeing someone jump into something and have double the success in half the time must really suck. It wasn't until a tournament midway through the year that I realized just how toxic his behavior could be. I had just been awarded first place at a tournament that our school considered really difficult to win. Usually, you would expect your teammate and significant other to be hyping up your win, right? In response to me winning, Sadbeard silently left the auditorium and didn't tell anyone where he went. As the award ceremony progressed, I texted and called Sadbeard countless times over, but received no answer. The coaches had no idea where he had gone, and none of our teammates knew either. Finally, before the bus left, he appeared out of nowhere and sat down next to me. I don't really remember the conversation that occurred afterward, but all I garnered from it was that he blamed me for his lack of success. He had told me that his depression and anxiety didn't allow him to be happy for me, because it made him feel worse about himself. It was a pretty quiet bus ride home. As the season continued, I found myself dreading results and placements more and more. I wanted so badly to win, but I also didn't want to make him upset either. He had made it a point throughout the year to talk about how he worked so hard and how it wasn't fair that I was doing better, and that I wasn't actually a good speaker, I was just a minority. He told me regularly that I shouldn't have placed the way I did at certain tournaments, basically implying that I didn't deserve any of the trophies I had won. When we weren't in a competitive setting, he had made it a point to make me feel bad for, literally, anything I enjoyed. He made me feel bad for watching certain animes, made fun of my parents' accent, and would shame me for enjoying certain video games. He himself was an avid Minecrafter and Terraria player, and it was only acceptable if I played those games. He didn't watch anime, but he watched other geeky things like Video Game High School, Beauty Pie, and Jacksepticeye, so we could only watch that together. Anything I suggested he vetoed. He would tell me that I was an okay musician, I had been classically trained in piano for at least 12 years, and would tell me that I needed to go to the gym to lose weight. It got to a point where he would tell me that if I got my ears pierced, I wouldn't be allowed to wear hoops because they weren't classy. In short, he just didn't make me feel good about myself. It was no secret that Sadbeard struggled with depression and suicidal thoughts, but he refused to see a therapist because he didn't want to admit that he needed help. As a result, I became his therapist. However, whenever I encouraged him to talk to his parents about it or to seek help and see the school counselor, he would stop talking to me altogether. There was even a night where he refused to talk to me and was unreachable for 2 hours, his last message being, "I'm going on a walk." This was following a conversation where he had mentioned suicide, and felt like everything was going wrong. I had voiced my concern, but he just told me that I didn't understand and stopped messaging me. I was freaking out and almost called the police when he finally responded. Turns out he had gone on a long walk, climbed to the top of an electrical tower, and contemplated just falling. It wasn't a good night for either of us. After we graduated, he and I decided to go long distance, as I was staying in the cities and he was going up north to a different university. Long distance didn't do us any favors, as he would constantly guilt me for having fun with friends. I met a lot of guy friends, and he would always ask, "So, which one is your new boyfriend?" He would also only ever respond with one-word answers or refuse to call me because he didn't want to hear your voice because it made me so sad. I couldn't handle constantly being berated for enjoying my life, so I broke up with him after a couple months into freshman year. I would later find out he had told the rest of our friend group that I was basically a slut and talked shit about me, only to turn around and tell me that all our friends weren't surprised that you couldn't keep a man. When I confronted them about this, they said they'd never said anything like that, and if anything, they sided with me. Sadbeard had just been acting sketchy, impulsively lying to our friends, and turning me into a bad guy, when the reality was, it took me a whole year to realize that I had dealt with emotional abuse. My current boyfriend has worked with me through a lot of it, and I'm so grateful that he's been so patient with me. It's funny. The past summer, Sadbeard and I ran into each other at a mutual friend's wedding. Sadbeard's current girlfriend was best friends with my roommate, the bride, at the time, so we were forced to come face to face once more. He told one of my other roommates, who faked not knowing him, that it was actually my fault that people in our former friend group refused to talk to him because I went around telling everyone he was abusive. I know for a fact that many of our mutual friends are concerned for his well-being, and the only reason they haven't hung out is because Sadbeard refuses to respond to people. Looks like losers never change. 2. If background explains anything, I must say that I thought he was cool as a person. I had never seen a guy so confident in my life. Adam often showed his Pokemon card collections to other kids during recess, and he was the type of kid to impress others with his cultural knowledge. He had a strong interest in English and Japanese, and was often praised by the teachers by how good he knew certain words and expressions. What I didn't like about him was his smell and greasy body. I knew sweat was common in larger people, but not in the amount he managed to stain his shirt with. He wasn't smelly 24/7, but whenever he finally took a shower, it immediately made a difference. It was like the toxic cloud in the room finally disappeared. With the background out of the way, Adam was special. He talked about something called hentai, some adult cartoons, and how he actively watched it every day. And even if he was smelly and had questionable interests, I really wanted to be his friend. Because my child mind just saw him as this cool dude with a sword collection and knowledge in internet culture. I thought his unlimited time in front of a computer was something to admire, due to the fact that I was never allowed to touch or play on a computer at that age. I didn't even have a phone, which made me the weird kid. Even young Neckbeard thought I was unworthy of his time, as I was a caveman in comparison to his holier-than-thou superior IQ. In any case, he had special interest in the lone wolf girl in our class, M. Adam actively referred to her as Milady or some other gentleman phrase to speak to her while she actively ignored him. Adam even called M his warrior princess, offering M money, which she refused. He also invited her home multiple times, which M ignored. Adam gifted expensive stuff to guilt M at times, but M didn't give a single fuck. M was the sharpest chainsaw in the shed, and demanded respect from everyone, and she somehow saw through Adam for the type of person he was. This frustrated Adam. So what did he do to gain this girl's affection and trust, which curls my stomach to this day? Well, there's a reason why this class couldn't have nice things. There was a competition hosted in our class where winners would be allowed to show interesting videos to class, while we ate our lunch. This school didn't have a canteen, so we just ate in class. Everyone looked forward to this, as it had just been a once-a-week thing the last year. The only rules were to keep each video to a maximum of 3 minutes long, and to win the competition. M signed in, which made Adam want to sign in as well. Many others entered, but only 3 were allowed to show their videos on the large white screen. M was book smart, so it was no wonder that she got first place. Adam was good in English, and managed to get a few points behind. I just got third because I was lucky. I actually cheated, but that's another story. And as rules went, first place got to show 3 videos, or a 10-minute video. Second got to show 2 videos, or a 6-minute video. And third got to show 1 video, 3 minutes. You know where this is going, right? Emma showed her videos, which made everyone awe at the cute and funny animals for 9 or 10 minutes. I thought Minecraft videos was cool back then, so I had to show the class my favorite music video under 3 minutes. And lastly, we got Adam. Adam just huffed at me and waited for my video to end, so that he could show his cultured video. Whatever happened after wasn't exactly the teacher's fault. She was just distracted by another student and couldn't pay attention to the screen. As a kid, I thought the video was boring. I had no idea what the characters were saying, and there was no music in the background, just English subtitles and Japanese symbols. Adam just smirked at M, as if he expected her to just give him a kiss or something, as the video got spicier, in his words. As the video rolled 3 minutes in, it quickly became evident that it wasn't the most appropriate thing for a class full of 11-year-olds. It was a clip of his favorite anime, with 2 people doing something inappropriate, with lots of blushing and loud screaming. It was building up to a not safe for work part, and the teacher just freaked out whenever she heard the suspiciously loud, happy noises from the girl character. Some classmates freaked out, while others were confused as to why the teacher quit the video and kicked Adam out of the classroom and sent him off, with another teacher, to escort him to the school's guidance counselor for a talk. That was the last video we ever saw in class. In retrospect, I'm glad I was dumb enough to not understand what the video was about. Otherwise, I'd have to say bye to childhood and everything else. The only reason I know why it was bad was because an old classmate cleared things up by explaining what the F we were shown. I'm also not surprised by how little action the school took at the time regarding the matter, other than to keep it hush-hush. Long story short, I lost all respect for Adam the young neckbeard when he made our class watch not safe for work anime, and made our class lose all video privileges. 3. Working in a field that is mostly dominated by men already made me aware that I would have to stand my ground, but some things still come as a surprise. So before I start my story, there are some things that you need to know. I'm a professional photographer mostly specialized in pet photography, but I also do cosplay photography to keep it diverse. Even so, people seem to judge me wrong in my appearance, since I am 5'4" tall, with somewhat of a baby face. Mostly I don't blame people, since the stereotype cosplay photographer in my country is a middle-aged male. With this, I got a lot of surprising moments with neckbeards and Karens. Bluebeard. Since a couple of years till Corona happened, I got booked 4 times a year for this anime convention to provide a photo booth where people could get nice pictures for free. Most of the time I would go alone, but since a good friend of mine is a cosplayer, they would bring me food and love time to time. This changed after I met this neckbeard, Bluebeard, because, besides the smell, all I remember was his high blue wig. I'd just put up my photo booth in the room that I got provided with when Bluebeard came in. You could smell him before you could see him. Not for me, but for my friend, who was cosplaying one of her most popular cosplays. We'll call her Fire, since it fits her personality. He wanted a picture with her, and while asking, tried to grab her in a shoulder hug. She took a step back while saying sure and pointed at me. This is her photo booth. If you want a good picture, ask her to make it. It will be on the convention site. Bluebeard looked a little uncomfortable, but agreed. So, after taking 3 pictures of them, Fire took a step back, but apparently he didn't much trust me because he needed to take a selfie anyways. This happens a lot. I stopped caring about this a long time ago. I get paid to be there, not for the amount of pictures I take. When Fire was finally released from the smelly dead grip, 2 other cosplay friends cosplaying from the same anime showed up. Bluebeard was still standing in the room, silent and watching these 3 girls. Honestly, at this point, I felt the neckbeard vibes grow. The stare, I could almost see him drooling. I just took faith in Fire and her ability to make neckbeards just disappear. But boy was I wrong. After the moment I took some pictures of the girls, they left. But do you know who was still there? Right, Bluebeard. Honestly, at this point, I didn't know what to really do. Most of the time, those kinds of people tend to leave when Fire leaves. But Bluebeard had another plan. He managed to make the full room smell like he was a territorial beast. The wall of smell was visible on the faces of the new customers. At some point, we were the only 2 left in the room, with no windows, of course, when he started talking to me. So you and Fire are friends? Yes, we worked together a lot and became friends. I cannot hide that fact, since 80% of the pictures she posts are pictures I took. But boy, do I wish I could have said something else. That's nice, he said while stepping closer. I can teach you something, though. A bit confused, I asked him, teach me what? How to use a camera, of course. I was just surprised. I didn't have any words for a few seconds. Then Bluebeard tried to take my camera out of my hands. No thank you. I do not give my camera to people, especially when it's connected to a laptop and flashlights. He froze for a second and got a bit annoyed. I've been a photographer for years, but if you don't want to be professional, that's fine. I just wanted to help. I stared at him and answered with a dead tone. I am a professional. I have a business, but thanks for the offer. I thought that would be it, but he just looked at me and stayed silent. After an awful long time that could have been 2 minutes, new people came in, and I started working again. After a while, the smell started to fade away, and I felt like I could actually breathe again. Again, I thought it was over. But no, he came back. Fire was not with me, so I told him, but I only got an "oh, okay" back, and he started to mark the room again. He started to ask me how old I was and other questions, which I honestly ignored since I was literally working. After a while, Fire did come back in the room and addressed the smell in a not-so-subtle manner. Wow, it smells so bad in here. People need to use deodorant. And she looked at me. I responded with my well-known, please help, I need a fucking break look in my eyes. She abruptly looked around the room and saw Bluebeard and said to him, "Oh, are you still here? Sorry, I'm gonna kick you out. This girl needs a break in fresh air." Bluebeard was not able to say a word and got waved out the door. After sitting for 10 minutes, guess who started opening the closed door with the photo booth on break sign? Bluebeard. I sturdily said, "Sorry, I'm having a break." Apparently this was not clear enough, even after saying this and having half my lunch stuffed in my mouth. He decided to sit next to me. I think Fire and I were just too confused when he decided to sit. "Cool," he said. My appetite was kind of ruined, and to be honest, I like to eat in peace. Sorry if I wasn't clear, but I am closed. I know, I don't need pictures. Closed means that no one is welcome for those few minutes so I can eat in peace. This apparently did not compute for Bluebeard. Fire is here. Fire is my friend. I invited her to have lunch together. At this point, I could feel Fire become, well, Fire. And she stood up. Bro, get the fuck out of here and let her eat in peace. If you don't want pictures, there is no reason for you to be here, man. She doesn't even know you. Bluebeard was a bit shocked with Fire talking to him like that, and I could almost see the tears in his eyes. Okay, chill. Do you have your period or something? He mumbled when he left. Fire madly yelled, yes, when he closed the door. Since this happened, she hops by a lot more, or sends a friend to keep me company, or act like my bodyguard. I see the humor in how biased people are to me, but Fire hates it when they do this. She is honestly the greatest friend. Bonus story. At the same convention, I had this Karen come by. She asked where the photographer was while I was holding my camera. I just awkwardly pointed to my camera and said, here. She looked at me for a few seconds and said, we will come by later when he is back. Who the fuck is he? I've always been the one doing this job. Another time I had a Karen ask my mom, who was keeping me company while playing Candy Crush, if her kids could go on the picture. My mom just smirked and pointed at me. I can do that, but it won't look as good as when the actual photographer takes them. Honestly, those two stories are the ones my boyfriend loves to repeat when we talk to other people about my job. 4. I was a cringy nerd in middle school. Moving around every 2 to 4 years, military dependent, left me desperate for friends and acceptance, so I always bonded with those easiest to infiltrate. Outcasts, weirdos, edgelords, neckbeards, etc. You know the groups. I've met some amazing friends I still have now this way. But we're all here for the weird shit. The first main neckbeard that stands out in my mind is PB. We met when I returned from living overseas to attend college in the Midwest. I was staying in a rural town with an aunt and uncle and cousins for the summer until dorms opened. And my closest cousin introduced me to their neighbor a few miles away. Happy to know someone my age, I worked hard to gain entry into the new friend group. Though they were burnouts, it was nice to be accepted. PB's appearance was average for a 17 to 19-year-old. I was a year or two older, but not wise enough to avoid eventually dating him. Always in some kind of stained and raggedy Marvel PJ pants, or old band and video game and anime shirt. He didn't dress or maintain himself well. Showering every 2 to 4 days, it was still a mystery to me how his hair was always still noticeably greasy. I fell prey to his suave musical charms, and how much of a self-made man he was, living in his parents' remodeled shop and apartment for free, and working for his dad a few days a week. He had zero aspirations. I think he was betting on being famous. And for a time, it was a refreshing change of pace for me. All-nighters playing video games and watching shit movies. My first time ever playing F4 and V was here. We skinny dipped in a river in August. It wasn't all bad, there were some fun memories. Curiously, he wasn't an anime maniac and didn't have a waifu. Just a reverence for old Toonami stuff we both grew up on. His family accepted and adored me, the polite overachiever, and made it clear I was always welcome, but PB was a pig. As the main hangout spot for 4 or 5 nerds, girlfriends, friends of nerds, you can imagine that the place became dirty fast. There were bugs you couldn't walk barefoot because of all the dirt and grime. PB thought it was funny to mix old foods in his fridge and leave it as a science experiment to grow. Guess who eventually would clean it all? Yeah, I spent so much time there that I would clean for them like a little French maid. Sometimes the guys would feel guilty and help for a bit. Grizz, an oversized regular, would help me when he was around. He had a crush on me. Some of them called me Mom, even though we were the same age. PB had the worst luck with girls, and it was because he would fixate on one perfect, skinny, talented dancer he dated in high school. Because he had it once, he obviously always deserved girls of this caliber and didn't understand why they wouldn't stay with him long term. In remembering the briefest hint of possible statutory rape drama, I think her dad threatened to report him if he didn't stop seeing her. so not a good look. Dude, I'm sorry the love of your life didn't want to get married and live in your parents' coveted garage at 15. Get over it. But yes, PB and I eventually dated. I want to say around 4 to 6 months. I recall being disgusted enough with his bed, a fool, that I brought my own pillow over. His was a different color where his head would rest. Remember when I said he was greasy, his bed, pillows, sheets, comforter, all bad, dirty. But his pillows were the worst. Saturated and dirty enough, it didn't matter how much you washed them. The oil discoloration wouldn't come out. Somehow, I would wake up with bug bites on me. I don't think it was bed bugs because it never followed me to the dorms, but who knows? It was gross, and I don't know why I put up with it. While he didn't have any fingerless gloves, he did wear the occasional fedora. He was an accomplished gate guard of media, and a favorite hobby of his was shit-talking other people's taste in anything. But especially music, to the point of insulting their intelligence. He always knew more, knew better, and was happy to say so. He was the kind of arguer that would only stop when you called his shit. One of the friends I met through PB was Grizz, who will be talked about later. Bedroom activities were average, not really remarkable, except for one instance that has been seared into my brain. I won't go into too much detail about it, just in case some of you happen to be eating right now, but let's just say his product was unusual. I've never encountered it since, but given that his diet was essentially fast food and soda, with the odd meal with mom and dad thrown in, well, he grew bored the longer I was in college, until it got to the point that he made no effort to see me at all. We didn't have any dates besides him occasionally paying for me at a nicer place than Taco Bell or McDonald's. I think he took me to Chick-fil-A once. I was okay with that mostly, but it did suck. Eventually he broke up with me over text, because he started talking to a girl who was still in high school, and decided she was the one for him. It sucked being the one broken up with, but whatever. I was ecstatic to hear that she later had zero interest in him, and rejected every advance. It's 10 years later, and he's in about the same spot, but I think somewhat more self-aware, living with an ex-girlfriend in a weird limbo situation for some reason. Stick around for the next story, and I'll tell you all about Grizz. 5. Gather round, plague rats. I'm about to share with you the legend of Grizz, protector of maidens and destroyer of curly fries. Damn curly fries. A regular visitor to the den of dirtiness, Grizz was a big guy. Big guy. When we met around 2009, he was pushing 325 to 350. By the end of our friendship, several years later, it was over 400 pounds. That's about 181.4 kilograms or 28.5 stone. As a self-styled Andre the Giant, he was obviously a strong man that just so happened to be trapped in a morbidly obese man's body. Probably some kind of glandular wizard curse. While I don't normally care about someone's weight, I did not enjoy watching his slow suicide over the course of our friendship, and his physical characteristics are relevant to the story. With his imposing 5'10" figure as wide as it was tall, it was important to Grizz to maintain a teddy bear attitude so that he didn't scare the frail womenfolk with his immense size and strength. He was always careful to keep his power level under 10% output, so that nobody would be accidentally snapped in half or eviscerated. This was an important part of how he viewed himself: strong, intimidating, ferocious, dangerous when provoked, etc. While he wasn't quite, in all ways except physical I am a wolf, bad, he did have a bit of that attitude. Offering to protect me and punish any man who might offend me was a common occurrence when sharing my troubles. Obviously, I never would have survived in the real world without knowing I had him to protect me. Not like I had a bunch of family around or anything. The goodnight Grizz admittedly was strong, I'll give him that. But you had to be to get around with his size. His strength was not the result of any kind of weight training that I'm aware of. He was simply blessed with it from birth by Odin, or Hulk Hogan. On one occasion, I had to literally scold him like a child for trying to lift my car in a show of strength, because surely that would impress me and make me date him. The area he was grabbing on my car was all plastic and would easily have been damaged, so although the car did lift a bit, I nipped that exposition before he could make his point. This was literally on a late-night outing to town after having drinks at PB's place. I was usually designated driver because I didn't want to fucking die. Grizz and PB had a duplicitous and competitive relationship. In a town that small, your friend selection is slim, and oftentimes, you may feel forced to keep people in your life you don't like, just because it's better than being alone. In this way, they would chronically complain about each other to everyone that would listen. PB would complain about his size, and Grizz would rip on PB for being emo. Ironically, they each complained about the other's hygiene. They were both abnormally musically talented, both doing acoustic guitar and vocals, some messy drums added in post, and recorded some okay songs together. Not bangers, but they did sound nice. If you were very quiet, you could hear them trying to outsing and outplay each other. Just kidding, it was the unintended main feature of their music. Whenever one was on a roll, the other would pipe up with a "yeah" or "mm-hmm" to take attention back when it wasn't planned in the lyrics. Think Kings of Leon and Never Shout Out style. Mentally torturing himself, Grizz had an ongoing inferiority complex centering around a grungy PB. In his eyes, PB got all the girls and treated them like shit. PB was more attractive, see average, had a private living area and didn't have to work. Grizz had far less romantically interested parties and had to work many times harder to keep them. This, sadly, caused him to stay with a few toxic women while I knew him. I will not deny that he was a good listener and kind friend, a proud fedora owner, and anime and game enthusiast. He did grow out of fedoras over time. Sadly, his interest in my life was not wholly altruistic, but because he imagined I would eventually succumb to his masculine pheromones. He was always in the same short-sleeved plaid button-up and cargo shorts. I imagine partially because clothes shopping was a chore. Understandable, I don't fault him for that. While the others claimed he had a smell, his hygiene seemed fine, but a bit musty to me at this time. Where PB was a bit more socially normal, sad boy and Gur impersonator, roar enthusiast, chaser of jailbait. Grizz was that extra bit neckbeardy. Spike from Cowboy Bebop was his inspiration. He was both a neckbeard and a nice guy at the same time, set on doing gentlemanly acts that, although appreciated to me, were just basic manners. Yes, he did have a literal neckbeard. Most of the time I knew him, he had a messy beard and mustache, assumedly to disguise his weight. Much like I wear pants to disguise the pale moon of my butt from enraging werewolves. Things were fine in our relationship and group dynamic for a time. A while after PB and I separated, I didn't see the group. I wanted space to lick my wounds and regain self-confidence after being dumped by someone I at least partially viewed as a loser. Awkwardness aside, while I wasn't welcomed back into the fold as before, they would tell me if they were coming to town or invite me to hang out once in a while. Pity, maybe? Was I now a token pair of tits to them? I don't know. It was better than typing papers. PB would sulk and do real sad boy hours when I was around. You can imagine my surprise when one of the guys contacts me privately to ask if the rumor was true. Rumor? What rumor? The rumor that I'd slept with Grizz. I laughed it off, but corrected him sternly. No, I did not sleep with Grizz. I am not remotely attracted to Grizz. Where did you hear this? You see where this is going? I guess he thought he could get some cool points with the boys by lying about my sexual promiscuity. Maybe he was feeling left out, I don't know. The fucker had to have known I would find out eventually. I confronted him. He admitted lying and apologized, groveled a little. The part that irked me is that not long before I had helped him get petty revenge on his ex by going with him to pick up his things and acting like we were a couple. It was clear that this was just done as a favor. I did him a solid, and this is how he repaid me. After that settled down, I was preparing to move again to a different state to continue college. Grizz seemed desperate to spend time with me before I left, and we texted frequently. I don't remember how it came into the conversation, but we both were interested in BDSM. Dropping me off at the place I was staying at after a friendly lunch, He offered to dom me so I could de-stress. I don't blame him for trying, but I was obviously not interested at all. I declined and blamed a recent breakup instead of the truth, being disgusted by just the thought. I have never liked confrontation, and see now how the answer could have been interpreted as maybe another time. Over the next few years, he delved into polyamory with his new long-term girlfriend, often complaining to me how she always had more attention from partners than he did. More than once, he complained to me about being stood up or ghosted by prospective subs. How everything was going perfect, and nudes were sent, texts were steamy, up until they met in person. I should have been honest and called out his catfishing. I'd seen his profile. All MySpace angles and photos of chin and up only. I compromised and helped him rewrite his dating profile with a bit more emphasis on his size. Our friendship came to an end 2 years ago when he got drunk and confessed his love for me, begging me to not tell my husband or his girlfriend. I was his one that got away. It didn't sit right with me, and I explained that it was wrong. Told my husband too. I blocked Grizz after that and haven't regretted it. I'll rack my brain tonight for anything I can remember. But what I haven't covered is mostly his health problems and neckbeard nest lifestyle. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Neckbeards in the Wild, number 56. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use and sent in stories for use in this video. I think the natives are starting to stir here. I heard a shout in the distance, which is fine because I'm done recording for the moment, and even though it is 1:20 in the morning, they can do whatever the hell they like. Okay, as I edit today, I'll be watching, or attempting to watch, some of you have probably noticed, but as I'm recording this, YouTube is apparently down. The video I currently had up does still kind of seem to be loading, but I can't load anything else after that. So I'm currently watching a video on, did William Shakespeare actually exist? The answer is yes. I like David Mitchell's explanation regarding that. Is, in spite of all the stupid conspiracy theories that William Shakespeare wasn't actually the guy who wrote those plays, then surely if William Shakespeare is the name on those plays, and it's the name we associate with the person who wrote those plays, then if it was a different guy than we thought, then it doesn't really matter. They were still written by William Shakespeare. I kind of like the thinking of that. It makes a lot of sense. Okay, and with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.